It's 1600 hours, September 10th, 1887. We have just returned from a scheduled patrol when we encountered an enemy adversary. We have 3 wounded, 8 troops in total, and lost no men. The patrol consisted of cavalry troops, and our mission was to provide trail security for passing stagecoaches when we were attacked from the high ground. Every engagement was different. Buffalo soldiers are trained to defend the lands they swore to protect. This is a formidable enemy, the character you'd expect to face under such surroundings. They were lean, well-proportioned, legs of steel, and insensible to hunger, fatigue, or even pain. While the Buffalo soldiers endured unimaginable hardships and racial prejudice, their spirit and valor proved to be competent soldiers and invaluable to the U.S. Army. Prior to the end of segregation, military service post-Civil War meant fighting to protect the peace as the West expanded. Today, the history of the Buffalo soldiers is viewed as historic, but during the time, they were faced with oppression at home.
Buffalo soldiers are the purest form of patriotism. How many citizens today would serve their country knowing their family was back home suffering from segregation, oppression, and police brutality? After their years of service, this is what they had waiting for them at home. Despite all of that, during their time, the Buffalo soldiers never failed at anything. Buffalo soldiers went through some pretty heroic acts to get the attention of the military leadership that had grown accustomed to overlooking their efforts. Law enforcement during this time period were accustomed to overlooking anyone of color, as well as despite their status as free citizens and veterans of the Union Army.
In 1917, the 24th Infantry Regiment of the Buffalo Soldiers were sent from New Mexico to Texas. It was World War I, and they had been chosen to provide security for the new campsites to train future soldiers. They were sent to Houston, Texas, where unfair treatment was common in black communities. The soldiers were not welcome. Law enforcement did not want Buffalo soldiers exercising their rights as free citizens to influence the local black communities. The soldiers responded to a community engagement that would later lead to a clash with the local mob. Due to the riot, innocent lives were lost. They were then sent back to New Mexico, where 118 Buffalo soldiers were charged and then sent to San Antonio's Fort Sam Houston's Gift Chapel, whereby they faced undue process in 3 separate court-martials, which ended in the hanging of 19 soldiers, and just represented by 1 West Point instructor with 0 courtroom experience to represent them. Their bodies were exhumed from the creek and are now buried in the Fort Sam Houston National Cemetery. In 1948, executive orders were signed for the desegregation of the federal workers. Then President Truman made a statement that said, and I quote, "There shall be equality of treatment and opportunities for all persons in the armed forces without regard to race, religion, or national origin," unquote. In 1951, the desegregation of the military led to the end of the historic Buffalo soldiers.
The Buffalo soldiers cavalry existed for 78 years and the infantry 85 years, of which the first 20 years were spent fighting enemy adversaries, mapping unexplored lands, and opening the West for settlement. The Buffalo soldiers received little to no recognition of their efforts on the frontier, despite their distinguished service as a path to fair treatment. During the Indian Wars, over 400 heroes received the Congressional Medal of Honor. Of those 400 plus soldiers, only 14 would be members of the Buffalo Soldiers. To add even more to this fact, here are some perspectives. Buffalo Soldiers made up about 10% of the cavalry and 20% of the infantry in the Union Army.